Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Soak. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over Leinster's great victory against Edinburgh, look back at all the other results from the Pro 12 and also look forward to the Autumn International against South Africa next Saturday. So boys, 33-8 against Edinburgh. Could there be a worse team in the Pro 12?
Any team that has lost Edinburgh at home. No, Edinburgh were very poor. They really were. I mean, okay, you can make the excuse that they've had injuries and stuff like that, but
they have
rather
a lot.
Some of it would be valid, but they are a poor side. There was no when the heads went down, and there was no bringing them back up.
No, I'd say that a lot of people switched off at the beginning there, Jay, when you said our great victory over Edinburgh, because there'll probably be a lot of people, oh no, not him again. A lot of people saying it's not a great victory. I think he scored 5 tries in and looked reasonably comfortable. I suppose it has to be a good victory, but
they're pretty young.
Consider there was 11 or 12 of them were away with.
If you consider there were enough young players on that pitch for the referee to comment on it the next day.
Yeah,
you know, that's quite significant. You know, I mean, okay, in the great scheme of things, it's not going to rank up there with, you know, games against Claremont away or in Bordeaux or whatever. I mean, it's not one of the great games, but you know, it's never going to be that. But it is what it is. I mean, it was a functional win over a mediocre team
with a van driver in the second row.
Yeah, with a young pack out, and that's pretty much all you want.
But like when you consider that Edinburgh 3 seasons ago were in the semi-final of the Heineken Cup, and this year, you know, when they have to field
that's because they could rest their players in the league, Jason. I think you'll find
they did lose. They have lost.
They have lost a large
amount. The squad has changed.
But seriously, like if you have to resort to bring in
Bradley.
They lost Bradley, yeah. But if you have to resort to players, as you said, van drivers in the second row, you know, like. Yeah. Like it's a poor reflection on one side of Scottish rugby when the other side is doing so well and doing everything else.
Yeah, it's also a poor reflection on Edinburgh in terms of, you know, when we dip down, if you like, into our kind of semi-pro league, we brought up guys like Mick McGrath and Dara Fanning. I don't see them bringing up those guys. When you see Wales brought up your man Watkins, the winger for Clonethley, I mean, who's done very, very well. You don't see Edinburgh bringing up guys of that quality either. You know, so.
Well, there are a few league players playing in that team. In fairness, the guy who was a van driver did turn out for New Zealand schools a few years ago with the likes of Sam Whitelock and what's his name, the back. No, it doesn't matter. But anyway, there was at least 4 All Blacks on the New Zealand schools team that he turned out for. So before he was a van driver, he was a fairly handy rugby player.
Well, one handy rugby player that did turn out for Leinster was Luke Fitzgerald, who made his return after I don't know many months.
Yeah, great to see.
Maybe.
Looked sharp. His mind looked sharp.
He did look good, yeah.
He made a couple of clever passes, inside passes.
Little offloads out the back door.
I mean, Stuart Barnes made a criticism during the Castres Leinster game that sometimes we do the inside pass too often and it can be predictable. But it's all about when you do it and picking the right time to do it. And Luke did it once or twice. Don't do it to a prop. Yeah, and Luke did it once or twice and it worked because, you know, he just picked the right time to do it. I mean, Luke has always been a class act. It's just a matter of will his body keep up with his brain, and so far, touch wood.
So far, he's looking good.
Yeah. Well, we all we weren't sure when we saw him on the sideline in one of the European Cup matches, whether it was just because we were completely shorn of replacements that we had to put him on the bench, but you know, he obviously was very close to fitness, and when he came back and had such a good game after being out for so long, you know.
I think to a certain extent kind of people are worried about Luke's comebacks because, you know, he's been very unfortunate with coming back for 2 games, 3 games, and then going out again, injured again. I mean, to a certain extent, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, he to a certain extent he's Leinster's answer to Stephen Ferris in terms of, you know, his injury profile and his return followed by absence profile.
Yeah, well, I think they really took their time over him, you know, because they said he'd be back in the 2nd or 3rd week of September. That's what they were saying during the summer. And it took till the 2nd or 3rd week in October, or whenever it was, the 4th week in October even. So they obviously gave him a really good long time to make sure he was at full strength, and, you know, hopefully, and he's bulked up a bit as well, which may or may not help in his continued presence But here's to it. The other man, unfortunately, we lost after 19 old minutes, Ben Teo. Didn't see him do a huge amount in those 19 minutes. He was kind of
wasting money,
feeling his way into the game. But I'd say if he'd had 80 minutes, you might have seen a few flashes from him.
Well, he'd made
one
huge
hit. He had a few rooks and hit a few bodies. But you could see he was a little unsure and getting his place in the back line, and looking at his lines across the field and seeing where he fitted in. But it's a pity now that we're not going to get. It's going to take that bit longer. It's probably be Connacht then up beside Christmas before we see him realistically. So we're back into a cycle of him getting a few games again and then trying to get him up.
It depends on how long that 6 weeks is. Breaks and fractures every season. The time required seems to drop.
Yeah.
The only thing is you don't want a situation where you rush the guy back too soon, and you end up in a situation like Gordon Darcy was in a couple of years ago, where basically they had to all intents and purposes re-break the arm and start from scratch. You don't want to be
3 goes at a time.
Or then like Tommy Bowe in the Lions. I mean, I think he was.
That's right.
Most other players would have probably been sent home.
Get it right first time.
Yeah.
I should pump a bit of Radweld in. It would be grand.
So anyway, we scored 5 tries last week. Unfortunately, we didn't get any, so we might as well look at these 5.
Yeah. And it's good we got 5 tries too, because we definitely needed 4. Get us back up the table. None of the teams ahead of us got a bonus point, so.
I mean, it's hard to actually say anything about this. Everything about this is shocking from Edinburgh. It really is. I mean,
they left a huge hole there for Dominic.
There's no real way you can review that try.
But like a very weak, I don't know, junior club wouldn't make those sort of mistakes.
At least Dominic Ryan would have to run over someone if you're a really weak junior club. He didn't even have to do that. Actually, I have to say now, of someone who's been critical of Ryan in the past, week on week he's getting better and better
every week.
With the run of games. It's obviously the run of games, as John's so fond of using that phrase. But the run of games is really, really suiting him. I mean, this is a shock.
But still, he had to spot it and he had to go for it.
Oh well, you see, that's the thing. I mean, that's the good thing about
it. There was nobody in that he could run into, so he had to hit the line instead.
Dennis McBride's try for Ireland against Wales in the World Cup in '95.
Oh yes, I remember that one. Yeah,
similar enough try through the middle of a ruck.
That was a good one.
So then Conan got his try. His second try.
Yeah.
Again, not amazing play in defence from Edinburgh, but.
Well, nice,
lovely catch from Kirshner.
It's a nicely weighted chip, and you've got an all-black or Springbok fullback coming through there, you know. So,
and then we just pulled them aside. Luke could have nearly got in there. We just pulled them this way, pulled them that way, and the rest, as they say.
I mean, it was
it's history.
So some of the play was a bit sloppy, but I mean, nobody lost the run of themselves and kind of got themselves isolated or away from their support so that we couldn't win the ball back in the ruck. It was managed at least, which we haven't done in the past. I think one of the big factors in this, and it's something we want to come back to, is
here we go now.
Is if the pack is looking that good and staying that, what's the opposite of disjointed? Jointed. Well, maybe the scrum half has something to do with it.
I thought we'd get onto the scrum half at some stage. All right. Well, that was a fairly decent barge through, but comedy tackling, a hint of comedy tackling in there.
More than a hint.
Edinburgh.
I think there was a jolly good impression of comedy tackling there. One that you'd certainly see in the closing stages of New Faces.
A large dollop of comedy tackling. I was being kind. All right.
I don't think there's any point in being kind to Edinburgh anymore. What they need is a hard social reality.
But Solomons did the exact same in Ulster. He went off and he got a load of second raters from South Africa.
Well, some of them were, and some of them weren't. A lot of them were.
But
some of them weren't.
He was a hard taskmaster in Ulster, and he took no prisoners. And he doesn't seem to be. Well, maybe he is doing that with Edinburgh.
Maybe that Edinburgh squad is just uncoachable.
And you notice as well they've 2 players at Scotland now. I know they've a load of injuries, but
if a country only has 2 native teams and one of them can only get 2 players into that team, it's pretty bad.
It is. It's shocking.
But everything about it just is wrong. It seems there's wrong. You play. You probably have one of the few of the lowest average attendances.
In one of the biggest, the biggest ground.
The biggest ground. It's nearly 70,000 people. you know, when it's clearly that if you have your games played in a 5,000 capacity stadium, that even if you have 4,000 at it, there's going to be a great.
When they moved to that really small ground,
Boroughmuir's
last year, it
Boroughmuir's.
was much better. It was much better. The team looked to enjoy it much more. The atmosphere was far better, and it was more like watching an actual rugby team playing in a professional league rather than, as you've often said, the Elephant's Graveyard. I mean, it was just. You look at what Edinburgh have done, or Glasgow have done. Glasgow were a bit of a, not exactly a laughing stock, but nobody really took them all that seriously. No. And then but Glasgow kept trying. They kept moving until they found the right place for them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you remember, they were back in Hewendon,
yeah.
where they had a dispute with the club, and the club wouldn't open the clubhouse. Well, they opened the bar, but they only opened the bar to their members.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't open it to the general public. So
or to attending supporters.
Biting their nose to spite their face.
Partick Thistle 0.
Yeah.
And that worked out a little bit better, but
at least it gave them
a
venue of a size.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't theirs. They didn't have enough control over it.
And
the pitch was a bit
narrow for them.
Whereas this move to Scottstown is.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I'm not privy to any of the details of the move, but from the outside looking in, there's nothing about that move that isn't a win for Glasgow.
And the thing as well about it is that coming towards May, they have the sevens there, so the stadium is configured to hold about 15,000. So they can host the semi-final in their own ground.
Yeah.
Just about,
but they can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they did. They hosted the semi-final.
So what's the answer? Like. The clear out that they had in Edinburgh a few years ago,
but like the border,
they've replaced them with
the border region is literally 70 miles or 50 miles from Edinburgh. Like it's far closer than Glasgow is to the heartland of the rugby populace, and like they should surely be tapping into that and trying to.
But they've never bought in.
Isn't the question that the problem or one of the issues that Scottish rugby faces?
They've never bought into the concept of regionalism, Jason.
The border region or the border. We won't use the word region. The border area, because they refuse to even accept the idea of a region, has always not only been against the idea of regionalisation, but acted against the idea of regionalisation. By when the Borders were playing, I mean, Borders clubs were scheduling border derbies between Hawick and Galashiels against Borders games.
And there was 800 people at the game.
Yeah. They were doing it. They were absolutely determined to destroy Borders rugby. Maybe they forget the Borders.
But maybe they pulled the plug too soon.
Maybe they did.
You know, like they probably pulled out in probably 07, I think was the last game. I think we played against the Borders in the last game. Reggie Carrigan. I think that was 07.
Yeah, it was.
And you know, it's another kind of 8 years later after that now that rugby has got that little bit bigger. It's, you know,
see, the problem is
the Ospreys won the league that day.
If they were to set up a team in the Borders region, they would have to do it without using any of the existing rugby infrastructure that exists in the Borders. And I'm not sure that they're able to do that, because I'm not sure if there's a football ground, for example, that they could use. However, they could set up a third region up around Aberdeen.
Yeah, I take your point, Dave, but what I'm saying is that there's people that live down in the border area whose their first sport that they're interested in is rugby in, which like there's kids going out to play and they pick up a ball and it's a rugby ball rather than a soccer, and they kick a rugby ball rather than a soccer ball. But if you've got a club that's not too far away, that's given the opportunity to earn, you know, a very high six-figure salary or a very high five-figure salary to play professional sport, surely to God you must be able to capture the imagination of some of these kids that are playing
I would have thought
club
so.
rugby down, you know, 50 miles
when you were on the
road.
Lions tour, you met somebody, I think it was from west of Scotland,
yeah.
And their attitude, you were saying their attitude
was, first of all, they were surprised that Ireland had done so well because they'd been used to beating us in the 90s and so on. And then when we'd won the Heineken Cup, but their whole point was, how can we be recompensed for, you know, we bring a guy through, like say the equivalent of Sean O'Brien. So Tullow bring through Sean O'Brien. They said, well, how can we make money out of Sean O'Brien? Like, rather than saying, this is Sean O'Brien, we're giving him the opportunity to go on a Lions tour, to represent his country and to win Heineken Cups. But it was the other way around. They wanted what he could do for the club.
And the ironic thing is, you know, Tullow Rugby Club have no problems making money out of Sean O'Brien.
now that he's got the profile. Well, what I was driving at with the thing about the clear out in Edinburgh is, like, they cleared them out and they brought in a load of second-rate South Africans. Where are all the guys from these rugby clubs that are playing in the Scottish Premiership or whatever? Where are they what are they doing? Why aren't they breaking through in Edinburgh? Why aren't they getting a chance? Why are they just not good enough?
Well,
I mean,
the
I don't
question
know.
is, are they good enough? I mean,
haven't a clue.
we don't often get to play. I mean, we had Gala Shields, I think last year, was it, in the British and Irish Cup.
They formed teams for that.
Yeah,
I know they're
but
out
the standard
of it this
is
year.
pretty damn poor.
But the thing is today,
it was pretty damn
like
poor.
you've got Leinster A and Munster A and the Ravens and whatever else playing from Ireland in the BNI Cup. They are professional rugby players.
Yeah.
And then they go and they play in the BNI Cup and they're playing against, albeit a matey up team in Scotland. They're essentially fellas who go to work 9 to 5 and the weekend warriors.
That's a fair point. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is true.
So
I mean,
it's essentially if we wanted to have if they wanted to have a level playing field, it should really be a combined AIL team.
But the issue there is what that highlights is that if Leinster are missing players like we're able to dip down into our academy. Whereas what do Edinburgh have? Or Glasgow maybe not so much, because Glasgow Hawks, Glasgow seem to have their region's rugby kind of all rowing in behind them. They do co-promotional work with the Hawks.
I think there is a Scottish academy, isn't there?
There is a national academy, but Edinburgh don't seem to have the ability to dip down into a level below to bring players up the way that even Glasgow do.
Yeah, strange and all right. Anyway, why don't we have a look at Ryan's second try?
Mm-hmm.
Another.
He was on fire.
Another reviewer's delight. This one.
He got bored.
Scintillating back play.
Yeah.
He got bored on the back of that maul.
The only thing that can be said about that is, they shifted the maul twice very nicely away from the point of contact.
Yeah.
They were able to keep the motion going forward. Nothing to do, of course, with the way it was steered by the scrum half.
We'll get to that, Dave. We'll get to that. I'm sure we will. I have a feeling we will.
But it was a nicely constructed thing. I mean, they're not exactly killing themselves. Number 21's having a good view. He's looking to see whose shirt fits me when I swap them at the end of the match. His. Yeah, no, I better not make a tackle. I might get it dirty, and I don't want to have to get my mum to wash it.
Yes, the thought processes of an Edinburgh player there in detail.
I mean, I presume they have a thought process. I mean, because we didn't. I mean, I don't like to be really cruel to the opposition, especially because we beat them.
Yes, you do.
Well, no, I don't. I always like to be, honourable opposition, clap on the back and all that. But this was a shit team.
Yeah.
Edinburgh really were poor.
Well, when you saw it on the sheet, you knew it was going to be. I mean,
when
apart from beating Munster in round one,
I expected a bit more from, say, their front five. I know they had a van driver in there, but I expected more from the front, because he does have pedigree. They had WP Nell in there. I expected a bit more, but
he's been lost in that team now because he's decent. When
he had the opportunity to come to a number of Irish provinces.
That's right, yeah.
Exactly.
We talk about that, the Leinster second/thirds that play while the internationals are away in November and then during the Six Nations. Try and raise the standard. They are playing for their contracts. They're playing to make it into the team and to put pressure on the internationals when they come back.
These lads are just fulfilling a fixture.
It seems that they don't have, where's their motivation for coming into a game like that?
That's always been a worry about.
They're probably playing in front of the biggest crowd most of them have played in front of, even though I know it was a sparse enough crowd with the night that was in it. But when they're playing in their own home ground, they're playing in front of 3,000, they're playing in front of 15,000.
Yeah. Well, you see, the question is, I mean, it's something that we've often talked about Scottish rugby, not just here and now, but back since the formation of the Celtic League, is players in Scottish teams seem to lose interest once they get selected for Scotland. Mm-hmm. And the other guys lose interest because they haven't been selected for Scotland. There seems to be that. There's always been that element about the Scottish regions, hasn't there? That it seems to be that playing for them is only a means to an end. It never seems to be an end in and of itself.
We move on to
Benji Marshall.
Benji Marshall.
This is a nice try, actually. I like this one.
Excellent try.
Nice bit of refereeing from Nigel as well.
They got better as they went along.
That was clever play.
He's a good, tough player. I have to say. I like his. I like the cut of his jib. Well,
you were talking there about guys, stepping up to the mark when the if you like the star names are away. There's two of the guys, Ben Marshall and Tom Denton, who had to step up.
Well, if you look at
the
guy
a nice
who's
little set move off that line out,
but you look at the guy who had him, a fellow who played for Australia, a fellow who's the current Irish second row, a fellow who's one of the reserve
Irish squad members, yeah.
And he's still playing, and he's probably thinking, well, I know if my heart of hearts, if everyone's fit, I'm not going to make the Heineken Cup semi-final team.
The other thing he also knows is, and because of, you know, to a certain extent the way that Irish rugby is run, where most of the players are Irish, he knows that if he does do well, there's always a chance that he can move up the pecking order, because it's not like there's a political requirement for the guy ahead of him to keep getting picked, because if he's playing better, he can get picked because he's still Irish. You know, so there is an incentive there, that the actual Irish team acts as a what you call it, an attractive thing rather than a limiting factor like it does in Scotland.
I think what was Nigel was looking at Tyg Furlong clearing out the ruck, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he decided to hit his foot and then came off the head, so there was there's no offside.
But will we move on to the really exciting try?
The one that gave you two a little bit of a sex wee, is it? This is the important one for boys who went to CUS.
Exactly.
And even boys who didn't.
Because
boys who like running back play.
Not only is it a CUS player playing for Leinster, or a CUS player scoring for Leinster, it's a CUS guy scoring, which, let's face it, doesn't happen all that often, either on or off the pitch.
Made by Luke. And a lovely offload from Luke too.
God, I remember you lads on the 39 bus. Every time the bus came up towards Neffin Road and all the girls from Cabra Convent came on, oh, there wasn't a peep out of you.
You better edit that.
I was never of the Gurriers from Declan's.
Yeah, and so you should be.
I was never on a 39 bus in my life, Dave, I'll have you know.
So anyway,
but yeah, no. In fairness, I mean, this is what we were saying about. I mean, this is what we were saying about Luke. I mean, really incisive and fair play to Mick McGrath. You know, trailing the man is one of the skills of a winger.
Yeah, well, you got to run those lines. And if you know, he could run those lines all night and not get the pass, but he did, and he kept running them.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. I mean, you run the trailing line, you get your reward eventually.
It was a nice bit of sexy back play. In fact, before that try was scored, it was kind of a bit of a drab game. Put a nice little cherry on the top of the game. Put a slightly different feel on the end of the game. We did the bare minimum with 4 tries, and to get the 5th one is good, and to get
a nice one,
little bit of a nice
and a
try
player,
as well.
and combination of player like Luke and Mick McGrath that people you know are kind of rooting for is always good as well. It gives people a good positive.
But
on the game itself, though, we started off, you know, going all hammers. We scored in 3 or 4 minutes, and we scored again not too long afterwards. But then we did our usual Leinster take the foot off the pedal, and we coast up to half time. And
but should we not really be really, you know, be critical of the team, because
absolutely,
like, while it's great to get the 5 tries and get the bonus point and move up the league a little bit,
that's where I was going with that.
We should have scored 60 points in that game, and like, you know, I'm sure, I don't know whether you watched the All Blacks against America.
They never give a sucker an even break.
They never do, and they wouldn't take their foot off the throat. Whereas Leinster don't seem to have
consider
the
it.
same
I would consider the All Blacks to have ground the foot down on their throat by bringing on Dan Carter.
Exactly, yeah.
That's what they do.
You see, there's a lot of, like we were saying earlier at the top of the program, that, you know, sometimes people want they want the moon on a stick from a match, you know, and sometimes you have to be happy with the win, you have to be happy with the bonus point. And then on the other hand, there's, you know, when you have a team that's poor as Edinburgh, you really should put them to the sword.
Yeah.
And
if that was the Ospreys, they would have scored.
The Ospreys would have
points.
murdered them. So the truth is somewhere in between, but it's more towards this side of things than it is towards the moon and the stick end of things. And we should have played better, especially if we had got our bonus point by half time. But then, I mean, even when Leinster were in their pomp,
they used to ease up.
Leinster always eased up. I mean, probably one of the most clinically destructive performances I can ever remember from Leinster was against Bath in the Aviva Stadium. We ripped them a new one, and we eased up. Cardiff in the quarter-final that year, we eased up.
But if you remember the stats from that game against Cardiff, they had more possession than us.
In the second half, yeah. Particularly in the second half. I mean, for some reason, that's something that's in the Leinster psyche.
Ease up.
They have a goal, and if the goal is a win, then they win, and that's it. If the goal is 4 or 5 points, and they get the 5 points, they kind of ease up. Or if they're on track for it, they kind of. It's weird. Like what you said, the Ospreys don't do that. If the Ospreys are fully paid up members, have never given a sucker an even break.
And they like showing off as well. They like flashing the ball about once they get on top, and, you know, fair play to them.
It's something that's always been in the Leinster side. I mean, it's very rare. Very rare the times. It seems to only ever happen against Cardiff. Something about Cardiff must annoy them. We never really kind of, as you say, put the foot in the throat and bear down. It's not something we do. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And we've never. I mean, it's nothing to do with O'Connor. It's nothing to do with Schmidt. It's nothing to do with Cheika. We've never done it.
So I believe you want to make a point about the number 9 for Leinster.
Isaac Boston, I thought he was good.
He was the number 21, I think.
No.
I think you'll find.
And this is. I mean, what is it? I think it's the second time I've seen him play this season. I saw him against Jersey in thing. And okay, there's been an ongoing discussion about his pass, which my views on it are well known. That I think a pass has to be functional and all that. But what really impresses me about McGrath is
everything else.
Everything else. You see, the funny thing is, I mean, if you're going to really criticise McGrath about the way he's been playing in this season, his pass isn't what you'd focus on. The thing I'd be concerned about is actually his kicking. He had an opportunity to make a decisive kick against Glasgow in the first game of the season, and he failed to do it. He did the same against Edinburgh. He had a clearance kick from our own line, and he failed to make touch. So there's that. I mean, but obviously, Irish people have been brainwashed over the course of the noughties to think that the only thing that matters about a scrum half is the pass.
It is pretty damn important.
It's an important part of it, but it's also as important. I mean, you look at the way that McGrath ran that pack. I thought that was absolutely superb.
It was Stringer-esque, would you say?
That's one of his good
No,
points.
I wouldn't, because he never tried to take off once. Never tried to take off. Never tried to get anyone sent off.
I think there's a kind of a parallel with Sean Cronin and Ian Madigan. Not saying that he's anywhere in their league or compare them in any other way other than Cronin is just a guy who wants on the field because he's such a good breaking threat and he's a great ball carrier, but he's let down sometimes by his hooking, by his thrown into the line, at which you think that's the two things you want in a hooker. Ian Madigan is probably one of the most exciting players you'll see. He's a fabulously confident player. He's got a pass that'll take the eye out of a spider at 50 paces, but he has an issue sometimes. He's a great kicker too, managing games, and maybe taking the right decision at the right time for the flow of the game, which is a pretty important thing for a 10. So I suppose the same thing you could say about Luke McGrath is he's just a brilliant rugby player. He's brilliant at marshalling the pack. He's a great break on him.
Great tackler.
He's a great tackler. He's a really committed guy. And he's you can see his brain is working right. It's just the one little thing. But it's a crucial thing.
How many appearances does he have?
3.
Like, he's not
Give
gonna,
him more appearances,
there
absolutely.
You go. I mean,
and what age is he?
I don't know.
20,
23?
21, I'd say.
20?
Is he 20? Yeah.
Well, he was on the under 20s last year.
Oh, okay. Well, he
Yeah,
must be 20.
So, but my point is though, like there's other players in, like we've spoken about Conor Murray, and even Jackson up in Belfast.
They got
like
backed.
those lads, they got backed and they got the opportunity, and they were told.
Ian Madigan didn't get backed.
No, but they were given the opportunity to make mistakes. And the only way you really can learn is by making mistakes and learning from them. And if he comes in and
it's
he's
a balance,
like
though.
Dave, you were critical of a kick, and we were all critical of a kick that he made in the opening game of the season against Glasgow. But like, if he's got so little games under his belt,
I'd have picked him the next game anyway. I'm not saying that that's the thing. I'm saying if you're going to actually focus on something to really criticise in his game, that's actually what you should do. The thing, I do agree with you. Madigan or Murray was backed down in Munster. Jackson was backed up in Ulster, but to a certain extent, they were in a different position than we're in. We're in.
Yeah, agreed.
They kind of had to take a risk on a guy because they had just slipped off the top and they wanted the guy to bring him back up. We were kind of still at the top. Now, I would actually take a risk on the guy. I'm not sure who I'd take a risk of on McGrath in favour of. Probably I'd begin to start winding Isaac Boss down.
It's hard to see him going on past the World Cup, really.
Boss. No, I don't see that happening. I mean, he is. What is he? 36 now.
No, he's 34. But
34 is he?
Be 35.
He's the guy.
Soon
despite
enough.
the fact that he'd be my favourite of the 2 scrum halves, because I prefer that style of scrum half. He'd be the guy I'd start to wind down, because I think that McGrath can fill that role and can learn.
I do it because he's 6 months older than Redden.
And can learn. I mean, whatever. If he does have a problem in his pass, you learn from the better passer. I think Redden's that guy. I think Redden's a more astute reader of the game and will be able to pass that information on to McGrath as well. I think that's what Redden is very good at.
I suppose that's the curse. Like, Boss has come in for a bit of slagging, but he's still a pretty reliable guy and a very experienced guy. And it's hard to break into a team ahead of, barring one of them being injured.
You've got 2 internationals in front of you.
Exactly, yeah.
It's tricky. Like,
you
hard for him.
You also have to remember, I mean, Ireland, is shit at turning out scrum halves.
Certainly is.
We really are. I mean, there's no other.
And Leinster, perhaps in
Leinster,
particular.
you know, Ireland are shit, and Leinster are a shit part of Ireland that turn out scrum halves. It's just the way. For some reason, Ireland haven't had a really top class scrum half since, you know, people say Patterson, John Robbie. We haven't really had one since then. You know, Bradley had his flaws. Stringer had his flaws. Murray seems to actually, you know, the buck stops with Murray. Actually, in fairness, between we say Patterson and Murray, we didn't turn out. I mean,
Scally maybe.
We never got to see enough of him. So
yeah.
you can't really say. Even like, I mean, I can think of better Romanian scrum halves than Irish scrum halves over the course of that period of time, and I'm not joking. Actually, I can, but you know, I think we have to back McGrath. I really do. I think, unfortunately, and
he's got time on his hands, though. You know, like
the guy. But I just say the guy I think that should be began to. If you've got a guy on the bench and you're thinking, should it be McGrath? Should it be Boss? I begin to lean towards McGrath.
Yeah. I put Boss on the bench like the other night, and I do more and
more.
McGrath
No, but I'm talking about if you're going to start with McGrath.
Oh yeah.
Or if you're not going to start with McGrath, you start to give McGrath that backup spot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you got to think that say Redden's going to be away with Ireland, so then you're going to have the two boys to interchange for 8 games over the course of the autumns and the.
And now that John Cooney's over in Connacht for the full season. You know, McGrath is going to get all those games.
Yeah, and there's another guy that got back. Marmion got back. He came in as an injury, I think.
But I think he got back because he was the only one there,
and also out of fear. There was a significant fear that the Welsh. I mean, he is Welsh.
Yes, yeah.
there was a significant fear.
They claimed him initially.
He's a Welsh Kiwi.
Yeah. He came through the Exiles system, and if anyone's looking for a really nice rugby jersey, check out the Exiles rugby jerseys. By the way, they've announced a new range. They're really, really nice. But he came through that system, so there was a fear that the Welsh were going to claim him. So
didn't they not try and Connacht signed him from Ospreys, I think, and they.
No, you're thinking of 2 previous signatories that Connacht made, and there was a big row about one of them whether he was Irish qualified or not. Jarvis, yeah, you're thinking of Lee Jarvis.
Right,
yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Matthew
Jarvis, yes, yeah, sorry.
Anyway, so that win moves us up to 5th position. So
it's
we're kind of slowly creeping up.
We're getting up into
what we do every year.
We're in the top 5, and it is a top 5. Those 5 teams are going to be the top 5 at the end of the season.
Yeah,
I pretty much guarantee. You're going to have a chasing pack of probably. Currently, it's 2, Connacht and Scarlets. Probably Cardiff will get in there. I have to think with Anscombe coming over, and you know their new coaching lads bedding in. I think the squad they'll have to come into contention for the very last place. But the key thing, I suppose, is the way now we're at this nice even break point in the season where we've played 7 rounds of the league. There are those top 5 and the games they have between each other. Ulster are the only one that haven't played an away game to any of the other top 5. Ospreys have a run of games coming up that could see them. They've home and away against Ulster, and they've away to us, and that game coincides with the Welsh fourth international.
Game, yeah.
So we're going to get them at a really good time. So will Ulster because they've got Ravenhill the week before.
Ospreys have played. Like, I know they're 7 from 7.
We could actually be a couple of points behind them by the end of the month.
They've played the bottom half of the teams generally.
Yeah, they haven't really, except for obviously.
Well, they've been away to Munster, you see.
And apart from that, they haven't played any of the top ranked teams. It's and as you say, that game is on that Leinster Ospreys game is on the day of the 4th Welsh international. You can be sure the IRFU will release all the internationals to Leinster for that match, because you can see that the IRFU are trying to target Wales. I mean, they did it for Connacht, and Connacht let them down again. But anyway, that's another thing.
Yeah, well, Connacht
have a few good pieces of news though coming up today. I heard
Bundy Aki played.
Well, Bundy Aki played, but Mills is going to be back for the next game, they reckon, and Tom McCartney is arriving any day as well. So there's 3 big, serious bits of kit going to start for them soon. And I think they have the Scarlets the weekend of that.
And Scarlets are the team that they're being tasked with targeting.
Are the team that they're trying to get out of the way. So this could be an exciting time for Connacht coming up. Unfortunately, they're playing us during it, but hey.
Well, Glasgow beat Treviso.
Kelsprees.
Yes, Kelsprees, but they kept their Heineken.
They struggled hard enough.
Form going.
Treviso can be tricky when they want to be tricky. You know, that's...
And it was in Scotstoun as well.
Yeah,
So.
true, there can be... Can be
then
awkward.
Glasgow are practically given the entire
Scottish
team. So, and then they had their captain was playing for the Babas, so there's another guy gone as well. Match I actually got to see was Cardiff against Munster.
I saw it too.
It was such a roller coaster of a game. I mean, it looked like Hanrahan was just keeping them hanging in there with their fingernails, and
Munster were
on the ropes. They had
scrums
against on their line.
The scrums on the line. It was against the run of play a little bit, but Cardiff they were dumb as a box of spanners. They just gave that game to Munster, you know.
Cardiff last beat Munster. We won 3 Heineken Cups since Cardiff last beat Munster.
Really?
Ireland have won a Grand Slam and a championship since Cardiff last beat Munster. I tricked a woman into marrying me since Cardiff last beat Munster. I mean, you could nearly include fire and the invention of the wheel.
You never paid me for that bit of hypnosis either, Dave.
I mean, Cardiff. One of the things that Cardiff do is they lose to Munster. I mean, it's just what they are. It's who they are.
Yeah. Well, they certainly did a good job with it. They could have had a penalty try.
I think they should have had a penalty try.
They were very
Adam
close.
Jones could have got a drop goal from
Adam
35
Jones.
metres.
Adam Jones only just missed
I have
that.
to say, I thought the look on his face after he
Yeah, he
realised
was
what he was
so
just after doing was just so funny. You just, it was just such a laugh. But you know, there's certain teams that will always lose to certain other teams, and Cardiff are one of those teams that will always lose to Munster.
I'd love to know the record of the Welsh clubs against the Irish clubs. It must be.
We'll look it up for next week.
But should you remember we did the thing on it was now admittedly it was 2 or 3 years ago and they've won since, but it was Clonetty's record against Munster. They'd lost 17 straight.
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
Since the Heineken Cup quarter final 2007, they lost every single game.
Is that where they had to come off with the rain or the sleet or something?
Well, no, it was a very rainy day. The match didn't have to come off, but it was a very, very rainy day, and they hadn't won from that point until whatever point it was we were doing the show. It was 17 straight games or something. It was just ridiculous.
Ouch.
And the other game of the weekend was Ulster beating Dragons. I mean, again, no surprise there.
No.
Obviously, Ulster have to firmly start concentrating on their league, seeing as though they're pretty much out of Europe. Like, I know there's mathematical, but it's so far.
The game was a big bunch of blah, except for the performance of Stuart Olding. That guy can play in any position for Ireland.
And McCluskey looks fairly decent.
Yeah, he's handy, but I mean,
do you know? Well, I think they
should
should put him.
Olding is ready.
I think they should put him and Olding together.
Olding's ready to play against.
Well, he could.
Olding could play on Saturday. He's that close.
But you know? Dave, I mean, we'll talk about Ireland against South Africa now. I was surprised to see the injury list when I was going through it. I mean, like just reading them out. Healy's out with his hammer. Nathan White's arm. Marty Moore shoulder. Donncha Ryan toe. Ian Henderson hip. Trimble toe. Luke Marshall knee. Rob Carney hasn't played in a month or in 3 weeks for us. It will be a month this weekend. Dave Carney hasn't played all season. Sean O'Brien's out till the new year. Like, you know, that's you could pretty much name
Fergus McFadden.
Sexton got a tweak playing for Racing.
Here's a key thing, right? Not just all those injuries you've just named, which are pretty shocking, but there's a few key players carrying injuries. Jack McGrath, Johnny Sexton, Gordon Darcy isn't 100%. Mike Ross, Rob Carney. Like, that's a third of your team that are carrying injuries going to meet the Springboks, the most physical team in world rugby.
No, I don't know. I'm just positing that, you know, there's guys who are out with injuries. Are guys who maybe could have carried some of those injuries through the season if this were a regular season. In terms of, oh God, okay, your man's got something wrong with his knee. Strap him up. We'll get him through the season. Then during the summer, we can have an operation. But because it's a World Cup year, he's having the operation now.
Definitely.
They're front loading the injuries, if you like.
They are.
And the guys who you're talking about, say Jack McGrath, Gordon Darcy, they're all soft tissue injuries. You can't actually do anything with anyway. You just have to wait until they heal. So maybe that's an element to why there are so many injuries that were kind of. There's no risks been taken. So the reason these guys are out injured is because we're just not taking a risk with them. Even in the autumn internationals, they're not going to be risked.
But like Jordy Murphy had an operation during the summer, but it seemed that he had it towards the end of the summer, didn't he?
Yeah, there was.
It seemed like why didn't he have it at the start of the summer?
Well, the idea was that they were going to wait and see if it was the kind of injury that could either respond to non-invasive treatment or not, and it didn't. So sometimes that's just the way it goes. But no, it is a big injury list, and it's a big injury list going into a game against the Springboks as well.
If you go into a game against the Springboks, those 5 players named are starting players for Ireland. And if you're going in with 5 starters carrying an injury, what are you going to come out like against the most physical thing? And since they've discovered your man, well, I suppose two guys, Pollard, and most especially because he's getting the game running now. If we were playing Mornay Stain and a couple of big lumps outside him, I wouldn't be as worried. But now they can kill you and they can run around. They got Villy Leroux and they've got Andre Pollard. Like the two of those guys alone can just mix up the game so well.
Well, Rune Pienaar looks like he's
not going to be there.
I don't think he would start.
The only thing I'd say is, I mean, this is again borrowing back on Leinster experience. How many times have we gone into games against big teams with Leinster, with teams that haven't been looked full strength, and Schmidt has pulled something out of the bag.
Yeah.
Well, the mitigating factors are we've got Schmidt,
and he's got 4 times as many players to choose from as he had with Leinster.
Yeah,
well, not 4 times, but
we've got Schmidt, and he's a great man for thinking his way out of these things and finding a way. But we're going to have to hammer the hammer in terms of physicality. We're going to have to go in there and kick the shite out of them, because if we don't, they'll just run all over us.
Yeah, well then you're
if they get just a sniff of blood in the water,
you've got to think Henshaw's going to start 13.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think
no question.
For 2 reasons: A, he's the guy who's doing it,
and B, Joe Schmidt said so.
And and C, he's a big fucker.
Yeah.
He's got the physicality.
And I don't think Payne. He doesn't look as comfortable.
Hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. I mean, it was tried. Fair enough. Give it a go. Didn't work. Play him a fullback. Absolutely play him a fullback on Sunday.
Especially with Carney. There's a problem there as well, right? Because if you look at who's going to be on the bench, Ian Madigan, and you can't play Payne on the bench as well because neither of them can cover the wing.
No, you start playing a fullback.
Well, then what do you do with Rob Kearney?
Rob Kearney might be playing.
No,
he hasn't played in 4 weeks.
I'm assuming Kearney isn't available.
Right. Well,
if he's not available, you start. That's a good question, actually. Then who do you start? Because Jared, I would consider Rob Kearney to be fairly unassailable as first choice fullback, but Jared Payne is a really, really class act.
He is. But the thing is, if you look at the composition of the squad, why would he have Felix Jones in there? If he was intended on playing Payne at full back,
I think
he probably wouldn't.
You also have to remember that
and just say the focus is firmly on the World Cup.
Of course,
much to Dave's.
No, that's the way it is. I mean,
that's the way it is.
That's the realpolitik of it.
Well, there's only 3 games because we won't be experimenting in the Six Nations.
We're playing in the World Cup in 10 months. It's 10 months away. Like you really have to kind of scrap these matches and say, like, really, if we win by 12 points or if we lose by 40 points, it is immaterial. What we've got to do is we've got to say we need
combinations.
We've had a guy that played 132 internationals in the 13 jersey, and now we don't have him, and now we've got to find someone fairly sharpish to take his place.
You see, I think Schmidt has changed the focus. The focus in Irish rugby was never on the World Cup. Otherwise, we would have sacked coaches after it instead of after Six Nations. But Schmidt has changed the focus. The focus now is on the World Cup. And I think that he does have to go in, and he has to use this. To a certain extent, he's going to have to use the Six Nations as well.
Well, look,
England do it.
France
this is the Grand Slam schedule for the Six Nations because we have England and France at home. So he might decide to use the autumn internationals, but maybe not so much the Six Nations to experiment. But I mean, we but the thing is, we have to experiment. But we got the first game up is the Springboks. Yeah. So that's a pretty hard testing ground.
You got to go in and hit them with everything you've got.
Yeah, and I suggest it, and I think that's what he's going to do. It's a very good point you make about Kearney or Payne. But in terms of the rest of the team, if everyone's fit, I think we know what it is, or whoever's fit, we know what it is. I mean,
Mike Ross, I guess, is a question mark over him.
Well, they say that Ross and Kearney are okay.
Yeah.
That they've doing full training this week.
If they're okay, even the pack picks itself to a certain extent. It's going to be the Six Nations pack.
Oh, I didn't mention Best. Best is carrying an injury too.
Yeah.
At 6.
Wow.
Of the starting team, and never mind the bench, the 23. 6 starting players carrying an injury.
You'd obviously have Henry over Ruddock.
I'd have Henry over Ruddock. I'd have the back row, the Six Nations back row.
Ruddock on the bench.
Has anyone done anything to displace them? No, because we haven't played a match since. They are the Six Nations. They were the back row that went away and won in France. They deserve another match.
Possibly Foley over McCarthy on the bench.
On the bench, row. Possibly, yeah. I don't see the starting.
Toner and Paul O'Connell.
Possibly Foley. I mean, he can come on and bring something different.
Yeah, he's a fair bit of physicality in him.
Darce at 12.
Yeah.
Depends if he's fit.
Yeah.
Again, you're building towards the World Cup. If he's not fit, you can throw Madigan on. But with him and Sexton both not being fit, we could throw half of Ian Madigan here, half of him at 12. You know,
you got Darcy. You got for start. Apart from anything, somebody's going to have to talk not talk him through it, but you know he wants a calming influence there on Darcy.
He'll need Darcy for that alone. Yeah.
And I mean, to be perfectly honest, McCloskey isn't in the squad, although he's looked good. He's still very callow. It's his first real year of senior. Luke Marshall's not available.
What I was going to say to you earlier about McCluskey is that you could put him and Olding together and have him at 13 rather than 12.
Yeah. Who at 13?
Have McCluskey at 13.
I'd have Olding at 13.
I think you might see something like that in the Georgia match.
The way the game has gone, we're all going for these 2 10s.
I'd like to see Olding. If Darcy wasn't available, I'd start Olding at 12 and then just go hell for leather for it. I mean, Olding is. I think he's even better than.
Is he experienced enough though?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I can't see them having.
Yeah,
Olding
they're playing
and
Patrick Lambay, Hendry Pollard. They're
Yeah, I mean, he's not experienced enough. But then after
Pollard
Darcy,
has 6 caps and he's gonna.
Who's the next option at 12? I mean, really, there's nobody except
Ian
for
Madigan. He's there for his club.
Yeah, Ian Madigan is an option, but I think. Do you remember how good we thought Luke Marshall was when we first saw him? Mm-hmm. I think Stuart Olding is better.
Oh, I agree, totally.
There's another guy that's out.
Yeah. But I think Stuart Olding is better than we thought, and seems to be actually delivering on it better than Marshall. Now Marshall's had a lot of injuries. And he's had issues with his conditioning because there's been a kind of a drive to bulk him up when I think he needs to be smaller and lighter. Whereas Olding I think looks like he's the real thing. I think.
Oh yeah. He's the man.
Very interesting, actually. He wrote a letter to the Irish Times, didn't he? You saw that. He was
Luke Marshall.
About
concussion. Yeah. Well, some people like concussion porn, but the subjects of it don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't think South Africa are an enormous team and they've got such a huge pack, but they're vulnerable. I mean, they only narrowly beat Argentina. They were beaten by the Aussies. Admittedly, they beat the
Argentina have that Bahada scrum or Bahia or whatever it's called scrum.
The Argentinian scrum,
which drove them off the not upset them big time. They didn't have the thing the Aussies had where they were shining the lasers in his eyes at the end of the last kick. But Argentina is a pretty intimidating place to play, especially when you're playing their first choice
and their scrummaging
and their scrum. So I'd say that probably freaked out the Springboks a bit. They were close enough to them in the rain in South Africa as well.
Yeah.
The
big Springbok teams have come to Dublin before. I remember seeing the Springboks team coming here. The first time I saw Pierre Spies in the flesh, and he was fucking huge. He was massive.
He's a bodybuilder.
Right? And then Dennis Leamy took him to the cleaners. Completely outplayed him as a number 8, which wouldn't be Dennis Leamy's best position, right?
No.
It's all very well been big and strong and physical, but you do have to be good at football.
You need to have a brain as well.
You do have to be good at football. I mean, guys like Villy LaRue, Pollard, Lambie, no question, those guys are big at football. But sometimes I wonder about some of the meatheads in the South African pack. They do stupid things a lot of the time.
They also just love beating people.
They do. You look at
their gig.
New Zealand match them physically. Right, but New Zealand don't beat them by matching them physically.
No,
New Zealand beat them by being better at rugby than them.
Of course,
and that's how New Zealand always beat them.
Yeah, But even if you think back a couple of seasons ago, they beat us by I think a couple of points. But we had a kick in the last few minutes to win it, and then we played them 2 seasons ago and lost by about 3 or 4 points. And then we beat them in Croke Park in one of the last seasons of playing there.
Yeah.
And those matches, I just look back over the last 3. There's only a handful of points on either side, so it's not like that.
It's not like
it was 20 years ago
where
where we were being destroyed by them when the game just went professional and
we were so far behind the mark. No, those days are gone, and in the past they shall remain.
Well, you see, the other thing about it that's both good and bad for us is we're Six Nations champions. We're the European champions. So, on one hand, that'll give us a bit of confidence, but on the other hand, which scalp would the South Africans like?
England.
They probably still will like England, but you know, we're on their radar because we're European champions. They'll want to go.
South Africans want New Zealand's cap. That's all they ever want.
Well, that's true as well. But you know, they're not playing New Zealand, so
never stop them.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks a million, boys. Thanks a million for watching. Cheers.